Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to House of Footy. We are back again with another episode, continuing our coverage of the FIFA 2022 World Cup in Qatar. I'm Ray, your host for today, and I'm joined by Mac.
Good evening.
And Gio.
What's up?
And now that all the teams have played their opening games, we will be reviewing the opening games for groups C to H. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social medias. That's both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at @houseof_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. Lastly, we are now uploading House of Footy YouTube videos, so please, if you can, like, comment, and of course, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our content. The link to that will be in our bios, both on Twitter and Instagram. But now let's get straight into the goods. And obviously, we have to go and talk about Canada's opening game in the World Cup. Fortunately, losing to Belgium 1-0. But, Jill, do you think Canada deserved something out of this game?
I think they got secretly, not to be, a douche or anything, as people call. I think they got exactly what they deserved. You have to put away your chances. I don't care if this is your first World Cup in however many years. You have to put away your chances. And lo and behold, it be your quote unquote best player who's played at a very high level at a very prestigious club at that. You have to put away your chances against, again, a third place finishing Belgium. No, I think like obviously things didn't go their way after. They had a lot of chances, but again, you put away your chances. That's what you have to do against good teams. When you get those chances, you have to put them away. If you don't put them away, it comes back and haunts you, and that's exactly what happens. We've seen it happen a lot in sports, and unfortunately, it happened to Canada, and we're Canadian, and we hate to see it, but it happens. And there's a lot of good things they can take away from this game, but I think they got exactly what they deserved. It was a good start, at least.
Fair, good start. Mac, do you want to go into some of the positives at the very least?
Yeah, Gio's taking the piss, bro. This is not what they deserve. Okay, I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe watch a different game, but I understand deserve. Yes, you want to be able to make sure that you do finish your chances, but I think you called it absolutely correctly in terms of. I don't know if it was on the podcast or we talked about privately. Is for the first X amount of minutes, Canada needed to go kind of balls to the wall, be able to make sure that they high press Belgium as much as possible. And you can tell even after the first 17 minutes, Canada had 18 passes in the final third versus Belgium just had one in the first 17 minutes of the game. So you can see early on, Canada was on top of them, high pressing them, making sure Belgium didn't get out, getting back possession, rotating the ball, and trying to be able to create an opportunity. Overall, I think as a performance, if you're the coaching staff, really, if you're John Herdman, you're looking at this, is that we couldn't really have done any better. Of course, you are upset that there was a lack of concentration. It was a long ball from Courtois. Your center halves couldn't deal with that. That's kind of just switching off for a second, and you can get hurt against some of the best teams in the world. But overall, you got to be happy with so many different things. Canada had expected goals of 2.77, whereas Belgium only had 0.59. And that's taking in a penalty is only rated at, I think it's like a 0.79. So even if you take the penalty shot away from Alphonso Davies, which was a miss, Canada was still well above Belgium in terms of expected goals. Jonathan David is tied for the most shots in the World Cup with 7. Canada had the most shots, I think, of any World Cup team, I think, in the first round of games, except for maybe Spain. I'll have to double check that. But
sounds right.
So there's so many huge positives that you can take out. Like, hey, we've done well for these different things. The downside is, of course, they're the only team in the group to not have registered a point thus far, and does put them in a hole because this game against Belgium with their backline and especially their deep-lying playmaking midfielders, they haven't been up to snuff in recent games, and maybe in the coming games you may not be lucky enough to face that type of team, even though Belgium are very highly ranked. So unfortunate for Canada, but a lot of great positives.
Yeah, definitely echo the same thoughts there. Canada definitely on the front foot, and that's really what you want Canada to come in and do. don't really want to sit back on your first game, I think, and absorb pressure. And even if you do concede in the first half, then it's an uphill battle, which it was. And even though Canada didn't really have, I would say, clear goal scoring chances in the second half, they still had the Kyle Larin header. And definitely you can see Courtois was the busier keeper out of both keepers. So that's definitely a positive. I would say, though, the experience kind of showed that Belgium had in terms of sort of keeping their back three very compact and really limiting Canada to half chances. And then some of the decision making, I think, at times in the game by the Canadian players was just experience being in that stage where things were either being played too quickly and just trying to get chances and being direct, which, if you have a cooler head sometimes, maybe I'm not sure if he's up to the standard now, but someone like Jonathan Osorio, who has been while he has played for Canada, has had the ability to slow down pace in those attacking positions and pick out the correct passes. Where I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Gio who was in our group chat who said there was a chance where I think it was Jonathan David who turned and had a shot, but he could have laid it off to I think Larea on the right hand side in the first half. So just vital moments like that where you just have that experience could have come a long way. But just lastly, before we move on from this game, I guess I wanted to ask you guys about the couple of penalty shouts that Canada got in the first half. And Mac, I know you might be a little bit. This might be a sensitive topic to you. Obviously, they got the penalty in the first 10 minutes with the right call on I think it was Carrasco with the handball. But I think Larea had another one in the first half. What are your thoughts about that play?
So for one, to touch on the penalty, Alphonso Davies shouldn't have taken the penalty in my opinion. I understand he's the biggest name player, but I actually would have given it to Junior Hoilett. I like that as a shout. He's an experienced player. He's taken a lot of penalties for club and has performed well. So I would probably have given it to him. But I understand at the same time, kind of the hype, the emotion, it being, if he scored, that would have been Canada's first World Cup goal in history, having now they're actually the third team all time to have played 4 games and still have to not have scored. So it's a little bit unfortunate record there, but you could see like the hype in that moment of why he would have wanted to take it. That penalty shot against Larea, he actually got fouled twice by Axel Witsel. If you watch the replays, where he gets stepped on and then he gets kind of hit into the back, which we saw several penalties even today that were given that were so much softer than that penalty. So the consistency there definitely wasn't there. And I think the only reason why it wasn't called back is because at that point, Canada had already had a penalty. So it's unfortunate that way, that there wasn't that consistency from the refs as well as from VAR in this tournament. And that's definitely a consistent takeaway for me from this first round of fixture, is where not just the referees on field, but VAR has been inconsistent to a degree that's impacted big games. So it's unfortunate that it wasn't given. At the same time, though, if Canada had another penalty and missed again, let's do a poll right now. Who would have been surprised if they actually did miss it? I wouldn't have been shocked given kind of how it's gone. But of course, we still favor them. But the point being is that they had enough opportunities elsewhere within the game to be able to put stuff away. David, Kevin, Davies, everyone had a shot, really.
That's fair. Now, though, obviously, before we move away from Group F, Canada now faces Croatia in the next game, and Croatia did tie Morocco 0-0. Belgium will be facing Morocco in the next game. This is taking place on Sunday. And so, I guess to ask you, Gio, now that Canada is, like Mac mentioned, the only team who hasn't registered a point so far in Group F, it's kind of an uphill battle, but what do you think? What would you give Canada as for the chances to get a positive result here?
I mean, I think they still have a great chance. You look at Croatia in their first game against Morocco, and it wasn't really anything special either. And I think Canada, now that someone already has played Croatia, you can definitely take notes from obviously the Moroccan side, who kind of loaded. They played a 4-1-4-1 almost, and kind of loaded, so then that kind of like slowed everything down in terms of the width of things, of how Croatia likes to attack with Perisic. and really clogged up the midfield, even for Modric to even get any clear cut chances. So, hey, now that there is somewhat of a blueprint, you kind of use that to your advantage. And again, if I were Canada, I would use the first 25 minutes to go at them again because they have the pace, they have the quality to put goals away. It's just getting the jitters out and just being clinical now. Look, they've had a lot of chances, and in one of those games, again, where you seem like you dominate the entire game and things just don't go your way. I think, especially at the end of the game when John Herdman said, obviously now infamous F Croatia, almost like Masai vibes, if you guys get it.
Yes.
But it's not to say F Croatia. It's like
Right, no.
we can go out there and compete with the best of them, and we proved it. So it shouldn't scare you guys that you're facing a World Cup finalist team. So they're gonna go out there and perform. I think it's gonna be a good match. And as we can see, we can somewhat expect the result even. If things go our way early. So yeah, no, I'm not worried about Croatia by any means of the word.
I just
Okay,
jumping
and
quickly.
last match?
Canada need to register a point because generally speaking, the minimum amount of points needed to qualify out of the group stage is 4. So of course, a win's great, but at least a point puts them in a position where on the final match day, they can still get through. So they need something. Which is the unfortunate part about losing is where if you lose your first game, you become desperate in your second game already. So just quickly on that. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, that's basically. I was just gonna ask you the same thing. Your thoughts on, I guess, the next matchups: Canada, Croatia, Belgium, Morocco, and I guess right before we move on from this topic, I just wanted to mention as well. I think it's important to note Kevin De Bruyne was the man of the match for this game, but as he also said himself, he didn't think he played a great game. He didn't know why he got awarded the award at the end of the game, and he praised Canada for the performance. So just lastly, just wanted to mention that before we move on. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that. And so let's move on now, guys, if that's okay, with Group C, I believe it's Group C. Argentina versus Saudi Arabia. Big upset here, I think. And so, Mac, I guess give us some of your thoughts on this game.
I was absolutely surprised about Saudi Arabia's approach in this game. Where in terms of not just the high line, they did a very good job of pressing Argentina throughout the game in key moments to be able to make sure that Argentina couldn't really build a flow. In the first half alone, Argentina had 5 shots to Saudi Arabia 0, but they had 7 offsides to Saudi Arabia 0 as well. So you could just see kind of, yes, it was all Argentina, especially in the first half, but they executed their game plan well to be able to make sure that they did catch Argentina in offside positions. Of course, Messi scoring a penalty, I think that was pretty much expected if you lining up to be able to take the goal. But I don't know if we want to go straight into the controversy, but the Lautaro Martinez, the second one offside, if I remember correctly, I think FIFA has come out and apologized saying that was a mistake where it shouldn't have been called offside. So that was kind of my big takeaway where, and again, consisting on this, where we're talking about VAR, where something like that, at that point, Argentina would have been up 2-0, and going into the second half, that's a very, very different game. So it's unfortunate that that's continued to happen, is impacting teams, but unfortunately it is kind of where they are right now. But you have to give full credit to Saudi Arabia. I think when they were down 1-0, they were like 125 to 1 odds to come back to win the game, which given that they did was, I think, constituted, if I read it correctly, was the biggest upset in World Cup history at that time. So absolutely shocking and outstanding for them. And I think even the next day Saudi Arabia put it as like a national holiday after beating Argentina. So it was huge for them. You got to give them credit, even though there was some controversy there.
Okay, and same question to you, Gio. What are your thoughts about that Saudi Arabia performance?
I mean, if I'm an Argentinian fan, again, not to worry too much. They lost to almost a fantastic goal. Like that was probably the shot of his lifetime at that point. To get out of that area and touch a tight space. How often are you going to see that from a Saudi Arabian player? No diss to Saudi Arabia, but we haven't seen that much on the world stage. So if I'm an Argentina fan, I still have high hopes that they're getting out of the group. And to that VAR call, it's not the first time VAR has messed up a call and caused a team to lose a game, an important game at that. I think a majority of the world's a little bit more up in arms because it does involve Messi, and this arguably is his last World Cup, so they want good things for Messi, and I get that. So it was tough, but it's happened to other teams, so they shouldn't really be too upset about it. It happens. It is a quick tournament, so as Argentina, you got to just put it in the past and worry about the next game, because that's all you can control at that point. So if I'm Messi, that's what I'm telling the boys, and the boys always listen to Messi apparently. So yeah, no, I think Argentina's gonna be fine. As much as obviously you guys know I'm not a Messi fan, but I can respect him. So no, I think Argentina is just gonna be fine.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly touch on the Saudi Arabia goals. Firstly, I think the first goal that they scored through Al Shari, Messi loses the ball in sort of the middle of the field. Ball gets played straight down the middle, not dealt with by the two center backs who started, Christian Romero and Otamendi. Great finish by Al Shari to go across the keeper, and then the second goal was the shot that's blocked by Romero falls to Aldasari, who does well to get around a couple of defenders, and then, like you said, Gio, great finish far post. And leads me to believe and ask you guys this question: Romero Otamendi as the partnership. I guess we thought it would have been Lisandro Martinez who would have started based on his form. But I guess, Mac, is that something that you think may change in the next game, or is it just a blip?
It's interesting. I would have started Martinez because he, on form, I would argue, is the best out of the three. Otamendi does have the experience, and Christian Romero. A lot of people, in terms of advanced analytics, like his performance and like his aggression. For me, I feel like, especially in that first goal, that was more so on him, where he had his whole body shape wrong, and it was easy to be able to get by. So it's unfortunate there. So I would make the change, but I don't feel like. If you're the Argentina manager, you can make that change as of right now. I feel like that's a tough thing to do to Otamendi, especially given his experience within the team. And that's the spot he would have to play because with Martinez, the big benefit him is being left-footed, playing at the left center back position. So you have a little bit more control, a little bit more time, and you might be more comfortable on the ball in that spot. But I would absolutely say that going into the tournament, pre-tournament, he would have been my pick to play there. But I don't expect to change. Sorry, Gio, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, but also, what do you expect from a Spurs player? Just have to throw.
Of course. So
hey, man.
What you expect from a Spurs player? How do you feel about Richarlison today?
We'll get there, buddy. We'll get there.
We'll get there. One last thing before we move on from this game as well. It's been really brought up and pinpointed everywhere, Saudi Arabia's high line, and with Lautaro Martinez and Messi, and even Di Maria to a certain point. These are players that like to play ball to foot, whereas obviously to break the high line, you want players to run in behind. And so I guess Alvarez, who came on late in the game for Argentina, that might be a way for them to attack. I think especially now Mexico and Poland will look to use this sort of approach to facing Argentina. Obviously, Mexico did tie Poland in their other game in Group C. So I guess, Gio, Mexico facing Argentina next. Big match to really decide if Argentina will have a chance making out of this group. What are your thoughts on this upcoming game?
Hey, I think it's anybody's to play for. I think obviously, as we know, Argentina's defense isn't fantastic, especially when they're coming up on Romero's side. But again, I think they'll make the right changes and they'll adjust. Apart from that, off Mexico's first game, I didn't really see much of an offensive threat in general.
Right.
It wasn't overbearing. It wasn't anything Argentina hasn't faced in their 36 game unbeaten streak. So I think Argentina are just fine. I think they will handle business. And I think Messi being Messi, he'll get others involved this game a lot earlier and try to get their goals up. And I think it would just like it will happen. You know, they had a bunch of offsides this game. And of course, an unfortunate call that shouldn't have been called, but they have the scoring capability, and you can tell just although they're offside, they're making the right runs and they're making the right passes. You know, you just got to take it one step back, and you know those are all good goals. So, yeah, I don't think they really have anything to worry about in Mexico. Again, that's what we said about Saudi Arabia. It is the World Cup, so who knows what will happen. You know, Mexico does have Ochoa in between the sticks, so you can never count Mexico out solely because of this man every 4 years.
Same question to you, Mac.
I was going to bring him up. That was going to be my first thing. A prime Ochoa is the one that knocks out Messi from the World Cup. Anyone surprised?
Oh,
But,
man.
No. Again, it's similar to the Canada thing I know we just talked about, but they're in a position where they need to pick up points. In Mexico versus Poland, both teams really tried not to lose that game. The expected goals combined for both teams was less than
Right.
one. So their goal was, we don't want to lose. They don't give a fuck about winning, but they just want to lose. Even though Poland did have a penalty saved. Lewandowski missed one as well as Alfonso Davies, the only two missed so far this World Cup. So I could definitely see a tie again, and that leaves a stressed out Argentinian fan base going into that last match day, needing to pick up all 3 points. So I wouldn't be surprised, but again, that point that you brought up first is that I'm very shocked that Di Maria did start. I would have started Alvarez. That would have been my pick, even more than Martinez in this particular game, because if I were to make any change to the lineup, because of his pacing behind and where the position that Messi plays. I know Di Maria and Messi, great friends, history together, won Copa America together, fantastic, but that's not what's needed in this individual game. You need that pacing behind. So I would be, that's the player I would make a change, especially for this game where yes, Saudi Arabia are not the most offensive threat, generally speaking. Mexico may be a little better in that aspect, but I still think they might try to kind of play a similar system against them.
Yeah, and obviously getting a tie from from Mexico and Poland still benefits Argentina to a sense, because obviously they're not too far behind, and so definitely we'll keep an eye out for what happens in Group C. Now, guys, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll be back with more World Cup action to talk about, so stay with us. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are going to continue our World Cup coverage. In this part, we're going to be talking about Group E, and I think the biggest result, the most interesting result for this group was Germany 1, Japan 2. Another, I think it's fair to say, shock result. And so, Mac, give us some of your thoughts on this game.
I completely disagree. I don't think this was a shock, because if you go back and listen to our podcast where we did our bracket of who was going to make it out of groups, we as a team decided that Japan, based off of our system, would go through and reach the knockout stage. Did we not? So therefore, I am not that surprised, boys. You know what? I know you may hear some different things, but I just, it was for what do they call it when you just make up an opinion to do the argument? I was being the devil's advocate for that opinion.
Oh yeah,
100%. I'm not surprised at all. No, but overall, I do. In this game, it's kind of, to me, I know it's maybe not as drastic, but I think Germany were very, very unfortunate to lose this game. I feel like they did play as much the better team for large portions of the game, but similar to Canada, they just didn't have their finishing boots on. I think for me, I know I'm gonna throw the blame at really one person's feet. It's Kai Havertz. I feel like he's out of position. He's a horrible fit. It doesn't make sense for him to be in that starting lineup. I think even afterwards, Mokoko coming on as a 17-year-old is probably a better fit because he's actually a natural striker. So I feel like if you're Germany, that's the biggest thing you want to focus on for your next game, is we need to sort that out, because even though Havertz does have quality, he's not the right fit. And that's my biggest takeaway from this game. But full credit to Japan. They hung it around. They kept it as a close game. They got their goal fully well deserved. And then by the slimmest of margins, were able to kind of just near post that above Neuer in the 83rd. Was it the 83rd minute? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, 83rd minute.
Yeah, it was
83rd
83rd minute.
Yeah, so overall, full credit to them to be able to sneak that past. And I don't know if you guys saw online their celebrations afterwards, how they cleaned up the locker room.
The locker room.
Yeah,
That's class.
Stuff like that. It's just like, that's full respect because I want to let you know if I'm there, I'm destroying that locker room. That locker room will never be the same. But they full so they just not did not just put it in a great performance, but with class as well.
Okay, Gio. Obviously, we were kind of hoping Japan would get a result here, and so let's hear your side.
It's just the Asian culture in them, the never give up culture, the attitude, and I think in general, I think you got to give credit to Suichi Ganda, who is actually the keeper, who made great saves in the latter half of the game to keep them in it at all. So again, they didn't give up. I think what Germany did was that they underestimated them. They were, even in the later half when it was already tied. I thought Germany's defense. I thought their line was too far up. They definitely didn't expect Japan to send a long ball like that over top. I think they were all over the place in terms of their defense. Who's the real leader of that line? It doesn't seem like Rudiger really has control of it. Or
barely has control of his own.
They're
running.
just exactly. So it just seems like their defensive line is all over the place. They got to figure that out if they want to, have a chance because they're gonna have to, they still have to obviously face Spain, Costa Rica. I'm giving every other team a win off Costa Rica. I think Costa Rica is morally defeated. So that means they're gonna have to get a result, off Spain. For sure, if they want to make it out the group. So yeah, they have to figure it out. I just thought it wasn't a great performance. Again, they had ample amount of chances that unfortunately didn't go in on any other given day. It could have went the other way and it could have ended a 5-0. But you got to give props where it's due. And Gonda actually just had a phenomenal game. He had a Thibaut Courtois Champions League final type game.
Ooh, I like that. Just want to touch on, I guess some of the, firstly, let's talk about the goals. Firstly, Gundogan goal. I know you're praising the Japanese goalkeeper there, Gio, maybe towards the end of the game, but obviously he was the one who took down Ram, I think it was, left-hand side to give that penalty away. I don't know, he was trying to leapfrog him after he took him down. I don't know what's happening, but obviously Gundogan converts the penalty. And then they get chances, like you mentioned. They did get a lot of chances in the game, but Germany concede in the second half through Doan after the Mitoma pass to Minamino, who shot is saved straight onto the path of Doan. And then the last goal, again, you said it. I don't think Germany expected that ball to be played over the top. And Schlotterbeck looked just not ready for it, and you got to give credit to Asano, the goal scorer, the way he brought it down and the second touch to sort of keep that away from Schlotterbeck, and then like Mac mentioned, near the smallest of margins, just being able to squeeze that near post past Neuer. Obviously, it's not as great as that Messi goal against Nigeria, but it gave me sort of flashbacks to that because obviously he's done well to bring it down. Second touch is great, and then just puts it in. So I think we got to get credits to Japan. See how Germany bounces back, especially Spain and Costa Rica. That game was played as well. Spain won 7-0, and so they're definitely trying to lay down a marker here. In the next group game, I believe it's Spain Germany taking place Sunday. So Mac, big game. What do you expect to happen in this game?
I'll be very interested to see because in that day, a couple of hours previously, is Japan versus Costa Rica, and if Japan win, that guarantees either Spain or Germany will not make it to the knockout rounds. So they will know going into that game the type of performance they need to have. So, of course, if Japan comes in and drops any points against Costa Rica, which I think we will all agree Japan are favorites to win that game, then Germany could feel a little bit more at ease, maybe just go for a tie, and then look to be able to kill Costa Rica themselves, and hopefully Spain pulls it out to be able to help them out. Otherwise, if Japan win, they need to come in guns a-blazing and to collect all 3 points. Otherwise, they're very easily out of the tournament, right? So I definitely would be worried if I'm Germany, and I would be stressing about that earlier game. So we'll definitely see the type of performance they put in, but I think it's hard to anticipate what they'll do until they know that first result. And they do have that advantage of where they are playing afterwards, so they know what they need to do going into that game. But for me, like I said, I brought up earlier, the key thing for them is you just don't play Havertz. He does not play. He's no shot.
Hey, that's fair. On the flip side, though, Spain scored 7 in their win against Costa Rica. So I guess to ask Gio on his thoughts as well, what do you think will happen for the rest of the group? Spain, Germany, big game coming up.
I think this is a good chance for Germany if they're facing Spain next. Spain are obviously they faced a very poor side. They took
Right.
advantage of a much weaker side. Obviously, if you guys listened to or watched our preview episodes, I wasn't really high on Spain. To be honest, still not really high on them. They took advantage of a very weak side. If they did this against a stronger side, then okay, yeah, fair enough. But they still have a lot to prove. And Germany can take advantage of if Spain wants to go all out offense and think that they can have that type of game against Germany. I don't think that's possible. So they can really exploit that if they play their cards right and really try to hit them on a counter and try and get some goals there because I don't know if Kai's gonna score any if he keeps playing the way he's playing.
Just quickly, Mac, you had some last thoughts about this group?
Yeah, that game, it'll be interesting because going into the Costa Rica game, Alvaro Morata, he was actually sick. So he didn't start the game.
Oh.
So Spain wasn't even at 100% going into the Costa Rica game. So just imagine if you had the phenomenal striker of Morata. And I think Germany right now would kill to have Morata as their striker.
Fair.
Point that out. And he actually did end up coming on to score. So I anticipate him starting this game. And it'll be interesting the impact that he has. But for me, I think it's interesting for Spain that they're kind of their back three, if you count Busquets as part of their central defenders in a way, because he does drop deep, contains Rodri and Laporte, all who are bereft of pace. So it'll be very interesting to see how Germany could potentially try to exploit that on the counter, because both Jordi Alba, who is going to attack, and Azpilicueta, who's also not the quickest or fleetest of foot, it'll be very interesting to see what they can do down that side.
Fair. Okay, so if that's all our thoughts, we're gonna move on to the next game here. I think this is Group D, France versus Australia. Big result there. This game saw actually Australia taking the lead 9 minutes in through a goal by Goodwin at the back post after Lucky's cross. And then actually that play as well, Lucas Hernandez went down injured, and his brother, Theo Hernandez, came on to replace him at left back, and he looked a lot more threatening going forward, and I think it really showed after that performance and those goals that France came back to win with. And so Gio, I guess give us some of your thoughts on this France-Australia game.
I think the first conceding first, that will be a lot better going into the further into the tournament. I think that was just a miscommunication type cue, but I think they can definitely get that out of their system. But the main takeaway is that they can score without Benzema, and they do it with a guy named Olivier Giroud, who now is tied with Thierry Henry for
Yes, sir.
most international goals for a French player. I think overall, if you want to take away, is that they're still very capable, but they are dropping like flies, and their depth is slowly starting to wear thinner. And going on in this tournament, is fatigue for certain players going to be a thing, especially when you can't rotate certain players in as you expect it to, and just having that depth. certain games like this, you'd probably want to, giving Giroud a little bit more minutes and maybe Benzema, if they had him, maybe come on like later just to get some like, rehab minutes, if you want to call it that. Something like that probably would have been done. But against the stronger sides, you have your best guys out there, so you gotta want to, the depth to really take, and absorb some of those, latter half minutes garbage time, if you want to call it that. So yeah, I think in general, France are still very much well in this tournament, despite the injuries. But they're gonna have to see what they can do in terms who's playing where and how many minutes everybody's been getting. So that's up to their coach.
Okay, Max, same question to you.
For this game, I think France are very fortunate through the first opening, let's say maybe 15, 20 minutes, actually not even be down 2-0, because Australia did have another good opportunity to be able to take the lead even further very early on. But once you kind of saw that gear switch in France, where especially on the right side with Dembele, he was absolutely dominant. That's another player that we highlighted going into the tournament. Has been on a great run of form. For Barca, he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink in a lot of different situations. So him coming out and playing well, I know doesn't surprise any of us. I think the Giroud thing, I do want to highlight. I think this clearly puts to bed the rest that Giroud is much better than Benzema, because the last tournament, Benzema, they got knocked out in the quarters, but Giroud took them to the World Cup, won it this year, might very much do the same. So I think that's obvious. No, as well as funny, he's actually scoring in terms of goals per match at a higher rate than Benzema playing for France at 0.44 versus Benzema's only 0.38. So I think that clearly settles that argument. Either way, though, I think another interesting lineup fact, but that this less so might have to do to injury, is I'm very curious to see France's back four, how they'll kind of go out through the tournament, because they started with Konate and Upamecano at center back, and I would argue that's probably their third and fourth best center back behind Varane and William Saliba. Get it right. So I'm a little bit surprised about that. And it'll be interesting to see going through the tournament, do they make any changes there? And I know, Gio, this might really hurt you to say, but Adrien Rabiot, if he plays in the midfield like this, he looks very, very good. So overall, France did what they do, and they're one of the few teams in terms of the higher end favorites to win the tournament to come out with the win. So they still look deadly and dangerous.
Yeah, just wanted to mention the goals that came through. Obviously, Rabiot was involved in the first one, then setting up the second one, the first for Giroud, after Australia was trying to play out the back, but really didn't have the facilities to do so. Mbappe got the header in the 68th minute mark. That's an assist by Dembele, who, like Max said, played very, very well. And then, honestly, latter part of the second half, Mbappe just looked unplayable. He set up Giroud's second goal, the fourth goal for France. And honestly, if Mbappe is in this form, with the players that France do have around them, obviously there are going to be a big contender for being obviously the winners of the World Cup. In the other game in this group, Denmark tied Tunisia 0-0, and I think that's a surprising result, Gio. I think you mentioned Denmark may have... Oh, actually, no. You said Denmark
or not. Not to me, buddy.
So let's hear your thoughts, Gio.
Hey, there are no thoughts. The Cinderella story is over, man.
Oh my god.
They couldn't score against Tunisia?
I'm just saying, that's your boy. Have some respect, dog. He plays for your team.
Listen. He's my boy when he's rocking the crest. They face France next. Yes. Good luck.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good luck. That's all I can say.
And then they face Australia.
Okay, and then what? What, you're gonna tie and draw? What?
That's okay.
So what if Tunisia beats Australia?
Okay. So you see that, but I then Denmark,
that's not a possibility now. All of a sudden,
we'll see about that.
Hey, I'm not gonna say much about Denmark other than it is what I expected. I just don't see what other people are seeing. It's not that they played a horrible game. They just don't look great by any means in terms of like going further into the tournament, and especially now that they drew the first game, there's definitely a little bit more pressure to now score a goal and to win a little bit more convincingly because these games are only going to get tougher. So yeah, no, I think even Tunisia, I think they're very high on themselves now to even get try and go out there and get a result from Australia and try to make it out the group. So other than I think France being a lock, I think second's now up for grabs, and it's going to be up to Denmark to really, kind of prove themselves once again, which they will have to do against Australia, and really show that, okay, that was a blip, and we're really serious here.
Okay, well, obviously Gio's taken the side of being the stern person, giving us his thoughts. So, Mac, France, Denmark next. What do you see happening in this game?
I don't think it's a clear foregone conclusion that Denmark don't pick up a point in that game. I'm going to go completely differently. I think if you look at Denmark's team defensively, they're one of the best in the world, in my opinion. They're very sound. They have a great goalkeeper. Their back three is one of the better back threes, as well as having a midfield trio of Delaney, Højbjerg, and Eriksson. So that's not horrible defensively. The question will be, how well do they do offensively? And against a team like Tunisia that's going to sit back, and that's what they did, they might find it difficult to break them down. So against bigger teams, I expect them to perform better and struggle against the teams that are worse than them, where they have more of the ball, which is surprising for me. They started with, and again, the Tunisia game. I know you don't want to go in your first game and start off with a loss. You don't want to expose yourself, but they could have been a little bit more offensive. Like they had Damsgaard come off the bench in the 46th minute, start of the second half, and there was no need to do that. You could just play him from the beginning. He's a winger. They start off with a 3-4-3 and go forward and see what you can really create for your team. So for me, I think I'm not surprised Denmark tied the game. It's disappointing that they didn't score, but for me, their bread and butter has always been upsetting bigger teams, less so dominating against lesser teams. So I still think that they have a shot against France to do something, and they would still be my favorites to finish second coming out of this group.
Okay, yeah. Well,
I don't know why Gio hates them. I don't know what it is.
I don't hate Danish people.
Okay.
I don't hate Danish people.
You hate Denmark. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Yeah, I hate them. It's,
hey, we'll definitely be keeping an eye out for that game. I believe that is taking place Sunday. Saturday. So definitely a game we'll be reviewing in our next podcast coming to you next week. Okay, guys, so we're going to take one last break here, and then we'll be back with Group G and H. So stay with us, guys. Welcome back to House of Footy, guys. We are going to finish off the podcast for today, just reviewing the Groups G and H results. Firstly, for Groups G, Switzerland 1, Cameroon 0, and Brazil 2, Serbia 0. Mac, what do you think about this group so far?
I think we have to start and finish really with Richarlison. That goal, his second goal, was absolutely outstanding. I think I know Gio may really love to be able to talk about it, so I'll let him go a little bit deeper into it later. But I think he's definitely cemented and answered any questions about him being the number 9 starting for Brazil. I know there's questions in terms of Gabriel Jesus maybe starting instead of them, but with this type of performance, I think he cemented himself for at least this tournament. The interesting part, though, is that Brazil, in my opinion, weren't as dominant as maybe they wanted to have been. They did create some clear-cut opportunities, but they really missed that final pass, that final decision. Wasn't up to their standard best. And Serbia, unfortunately, couldn't really kind of keep them out to be able to see if there's certain areas they can exploit, because from set pieces, they did look dangerous. On the counter, at some points, they did look dangerous as well. I think other than that, the performance, I know that we all anticipated Brazil to be able to win this game, but I don't know if you saw the photo that went around of Neymar's ankle after the game. That looks very, very scary. And hopefully he's not, the coach came out afterwards saying that, no, he's not, Neymar's playing in this World Cup. That's fine. He's going to keep playing. There won't be any issues there. But I think this was the most fouls ever won in a World Cup game. He did that, and it may have come at a cost. So be interesting to see. Though, I guess quickly want to be able to hit on, it'll be interesting to see if they do adjust their formation, because they started with Vinicius, Neymar playing as a 10, and on the right wing was Rafinha. Against the bigger teams, I don't know if they can run with that as an attacking three behind Ever Charleston, because all three of them, in my opinion, do not put it in the defensive work rate to be able to cover. So against the bigger teams, I don't think this is how they should really play, or that they may end up playing. So um, I think they're just using it as a group stage, try to collect the goals, push them through, come in as first, and then see who they match up with, and maybe make a change. But hopefully at that point, Neymar being out wide, maybe he's not hit as much, and he's not going to sustain an injury, because he's talked about this being his last World Cup as well, even though he is younger than Ronaldo and Messi. But just given the kind of the abuse that he takes, you can see why that he might retire a little bit younger than them.
Okay, Gio, your thoughts?
Again, I think the biggest win here is Brazil. I don't think, again, like, just to echo what Max said, I don't think anybody really, doubted you know Brazil to really take this match. Sorry, but again, it's still a win that the injury happened in the first game, and they're in a weaker group. They have the depth to kind of rotate players in and out, and if Neymar needs to take the next two games off to rest that ankle, to preserve for the group stage, I think to for the round of 16 and such, I think they're going to be okay. They have the depth, they have the quality to do so, to afford to do so. Yeah, if I'm a Brazilian fan, I'm saying, Neymar, you ice that ankle for as long as you need. Um, and because of the camaraderie of that Brazilian team, I think everybody is going to put in an extra effort, just to guarantee that Neymar doesn't have to further injure himself in the group stage games. So yeah, I think Brazil's going to be fine. They're going to go out there and play very well and score many goals. And I'm trying to see a lot more dances. You know, even if it does mean that I see Richarlison score a little more. I think I said it in the chat. Just as long as he's not doing it in a Spurs kit. Hey man, he can score all he wants. Man. He can score all he wants. That does not matter to me. It's actually very fun to watch. Because he does his little chicken dance after, and it's pure comedy. So yeah. If I'm Brazil, it's not much to worry about. Even if I'm Serbia, they still have a lot to play for. I think the other two teams that they play,
Cameroon, they're facing next.
Cameroon and or Switzerland, whoever they play first. I think they still have a very good chance, in terms of the personnel they have. I don't see Serbia moving on being too much of an issue either. They just have to guarantee that they get a result against Switzerland, at least, just so the points look good. But yeah, I think our prediction. Well, I still stand strong with our prediction with Brazil and Serbia moving.
Okay, Mac. Same question to you, but just before that, I just want to jump in. When Gio said the Brazilian depth, and obviously they do have a lot of depth, going up top. They also have depth in midfield because they brought Fred to ice out the game at the end, because obviously you need Fred to control the game. So hey, that's just something that stood out to me. But no, for sure, the next games will be Brazil, Switzerland, and Cameroon, Serbia. I think Serbia should be looking favorites to come out second in this group. Switzerland did beat Cameroon, but I don't think they looked that great in their opening game. So I guess, Mac, your question asked to you. What do you think will take place in this group?
I think Brazil washes Switzerland, and then in the third game against Cameroon, gets to play all the players that are on the bench and go for it.
Right.
I think that's how it'll play out. The interesting game for me would be between the Serbia Switzerland, and that'll be in the final match day. That's where they will feel like things will be settled. So that's what I'm anticipating going forward. And selfishly, it would be nice to see Gabriel Martinelli play for Brazil in a World Cup game. So that'll be nice.
For sure. Okay, so let's move on to Group H quickly. Uruguay tied South Korea 0-0. And then we had the game, I think one of the more entertaining games this World Cup so far. Portugal 3, Ghana 2. Gio, your thoughts on this game or this group?
Hey, I think we kind of have to readjust that group ranking, because I think Ghana can compete with the best of them if they don't take Kudos off. I thought he was really him and actually Jordan Ayew were actually Andre Ayew, is it?
Yes, it's Andre.
Andre Ayew.
I believe so. Yeah, Andre. Yeah.
Were really, kind of their bright spots throughout their game, and really kind of like causing a ruckus in that midfield, kind of keeping Portugal a little bit more honest. Although Portugal was dominating, they still had to keep that in their mind, that these two guys are sort of causing trouble, especially with Joao Cancelo, who still is kind of looking a little shaky coming from his Man City playing days. So worried there, worried about goalkeeping, but you just have to. If I'm Portugal, I'm still happy with the win. Although it was a lot tighter than it was. A lot tighter than it needed to be. But yeah, I think Bruno had a fantastic game. I think we talked about that. The third guarantee in life, death, taxes, and Ronaldo scoring a pen. It happens. It happens. I think most fans after him, after Portugal winning that penalty, thought it was going to be a simple. Ronaldo scores the pen 1-0. They kind of squeeze out a win and they move on. But the game was really fun afterwards. It really opened up after the pen actually. Seeing Joao Felix score, great goal by the way, chip. And then Rafael Leao came off the bench, calm as ever, slots it far side, and and then the rest was history. I think you guys all want to talk about it, so let's talk about it. Bukhari scores a goal and then hits the C, which is hilarious because why would you hit that when you're down?
You're down, man.
You're down,
Yeah,
my
exactly.
guy. You're down, my guy. I can see Max shaking his head because he knows that's not what he would have done. I just grab the ball and go back to the midfield.
You do that for the third goal.
Yeah, you do that for the third goal, right? But no, it was hilarious in hindsight because I'm not the one losing. So hey, man, you know it's all entertainment. But yeah, tough draw against Uruguay, South Korea. Uruguay only had one shot on goal. And it came very late in the game from my favorite player actually. No, Valverde off the crossbar.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. So put some respect on my name. Put some respect on his name.
For sure.
That was dirty. If I went in, I definitely would have
Yeah.
shot my pants. I definitely would have sold myself for sure. But tough draw. But yeah, not overly convincing by either South Korea or Uruguay, though, in my opinion.
Okay. Same question to you, Mac. Entertaining group so far?
I almost completely disagree with almost everything that Gio said in a different way. So for me, Ghana were probably maybe the second or third worst team in terms of performance-wise in this World Cup, in my opinion. They were poor on the ball. They could barely get outside their own half, and were lucky not to be down 4 or 5-0 early against Portugal, in my opinion. Like Ronaldo had a good opportunity, first touch to be able to turn, to be able to shoot. He had a bad first touch. He had a header, which Ronaldo on most days was going to be able to score that. And even when they eventually got a penalty, in my opinion, that wasn't a penalty. There was a harder challenge earlier on in the game that wasn't given, and based on how the referee was calling the game, that definitely should have been. That was extremely soft. So I think Portugal are fortunate to be able to come out with the win. It's great. You want to come out with the win. It sets themselves up in the group stage. But for me, I leave this game asking more questions about Portugal than I had going into the game. For example, like Rafael not starting, who arguably is probably maybe their best attacker on form going into the World Cup, and he doesn't get into the starting 11, which is a little bit surprising. As well as Rafael Guerrero starting at left back instead of Mendes. I don't know if he had a knock or an injury, but on form, he's been the better player. And every single time you thought Portugal were going to put this game away, they let Ghana right back in it from poor defending from both goals, as well as in the last minute of the game. I don't know if you guys saw that, but they tried a Grand Theft Auto Jose
Alvarado
tried. If you saw him on Twitter, he came in. He's like, "Yo, someone did a me in the World Cup." What? He was already there for it. And if I think it's Williams doesn't slip, it's 3-3. And Portugal looking at this that's a huge disappointment. So I think they're very, very lucky. Whereas Uruguay and South Korea, I think they in a lot of ways, South Korea perfected their game plan defensively, didn't allow Uruguay to cut through. But Uruguay were good enough on the ball and rotation that if I'm Portugal facing either one of these teams, they're going to come at you in completely different ways, but both can be very successful at it. So I think, of course, it's good that they put up 3 points. They only really need to pick up another win against either one of these teams to see themselves out of the group. But I don't think it's clear sailings as of yet.
And on that note, South Korea will take on Ghana on Monday, and Portugal will take on Uruguay as well on Monday. And we'll watching those games as Portugal and Uruguay, I think, favorites in this group to come through. That will be a big decider. So we'll definitely be looking out for that. But before we finish off, guys, just overall, now that all teams have played so far in this World Cup, some winners and losers and key talking points that you guys want to talk about so far. I guess let me throw it to you first, Mac. What are some of your thoughts so far?
I feel like this World Cup, since there's such a short timeline from exiting group play to the start of the World Cup, a lot of these underdog teams are somewhat of an advantage because, in my opinion, there isn't as much squad rotation in their teams, where they have much more of a settled side, where they know the team that they're going in, and they have much more of an understanding of the play style they want to play. And for a lot of them, it had a little bit more time coming into the World Cup versus the bigger teams. But I think this goes to show, I think, it's early, it's one game, but teams like England, France, who excelled in their first group game, because they have more of a team that have played together. I know France did sustain a lot of injuries, but a lot of the core has been there before, like Griezmann, Mbappe, Dembele, Giroud. They're all part of the last World Cup winning squad. So it's not surprising when you have performances like that for teams that are a bit much more coalesced and on the same page to perform well, and the teams that have a little bit more changes, like a Germany, didn't perform well. So I think the variance in the first game has been much higher because of that, and it'll be interesting, each team having another 4 or 5 days till the second game, what changes then. So I think that's my biggest takeaway, is where the disappointments probably are happening because of the short turnaround, as well as, of course, it's the World Cup, you never know. But for me, that's something that I found very interesting.
And same question to you, Gio. Some winners, losers, or key talking points so far for the World Cup?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of even if you consider them stars or whoever you consider like a top tier player, you're seeing a lot of struggles in terms of even just passing shots, even just general run of play, the flow, the rhythm. Not a lot of teams got together and were able to play 2-3 friendly games going into the World Cup. They were coming from their club teams. Sometimes their roles are different on their club teams, right? They play a little differently. They have different tasks, different things they want to check off the box in every game, and sometimes that's not the same when they're wearing an international kit. I.e., for example, just off the top of my head, Alphonso Davies. He's normally a defender, but he plays as a winger forward type player for Canada. So and that's just one example. But a lot of people are slotted into different types of roles that they're not quite used to, and unfortunately, we're kind of seeing it now where it almost takes like a 1 game buffer or even a 1/2 buffer, because you kind of almost saw teams turn it on the second half when they got some time under their belt, i.e. Wales. Wales had an amazing second half once they started clicking and started playing as a team. I think we're going to expect, what we can expect from, their second games going on and going forward is that better team play, better flow, better rhythm from teams. And I expect a lot more goals in the first half, because 4 out of the 4 games today, at least, didn't have a goal in the first half. So you can only imagine how unhappy neutrals were to see no goals in the World Cup, at least in the first half for every single game. So I expect more goals, and I expect the second round of games to be a lot more fun as well.
Okay, I agree with you guys. Obviously, this what you guys are talking about is very. I think the way you guys are putting it is detrimental to some teams. But honestly, I'm gonna be selfish here. I absolutely love how close all these games are, because teams get maybe 2-3 days to, first of all, recover, regroup, and think about the next game that's coming up, because obviously the next round of games is starting tomorrow for Group A's and B. And I think in previous World Cups they might have gotten an extra day. I'm not exactly certain, but it's just, hey, I'm all here for it, because the turnaround is quick, and matchups are gonna, obviously key matchups such as tomorrow. I think it's England against US. That's gonna be a very fun match. And on that note, I wanted to ask you guys. I'm gonna go first to give you guys some time to think. What is a matchup that you guys are most interested in seeing for the next round? And for me, it's France against Denmark. And here's why. Jerry mentioned obviously France, and we all know France has such great depth in terms of all the world class French players. But in terms of the offense, it's great that Mbappe is playing well, Dembele is playing well, and Giroud is scoring goals. Griezmann will also play well and get amongst it. But really looking at the bench, Benzema's out and Kunku is also out. The only two players offensively they could rely on would be Marcus Thuram and Kingsley Coman to come and bolster that attack. If I'm not hoping this happens, but if one of those front players goes down, there's going to be a significant drop off. And a team like France, who you really, against Denmark, especially next game, where Denmark are, like Max said, a team that will perform better against better teams, but sometimes they might not be as impressive against teams that are quote unquote lesser than them. That's going to be a very, very interesting game. If France really can't continue that goal scoring form, it will be interesting to see if how far they can make it out into this tournament, because if they get a win, they will be essentially guaranteed to go through to the knockout stages. But just interesting to see what France will do for that game, and also if they do get a win, how they will rest the front players, because obviously the knockout games come really quickly. So, Mac, a match that you may be interested in watching for the next round?
It's obvious, Canada-Croatia. I'm very interested to see how that game will turn out. This, in terms of my talking points earlier, going over of how Canada were able to kind of press the defensive midfielders for Belgium, it's going to be a very different game where between Modric, Brozovic, as well as Kovacic for Croatia, they're all three very comfortable on the ball, and all three of them are going to play deeper than Kevin De Bruyne did against Belgium. So it's a different type of matchup where a lot of the times in that game you would see, because there's two defensive midfielders between Eustáquio and Atiba Hutchinson in the midfield for Canada, and one of them will go to press out on the side to be able to help. But if the ball goes into the middle and it's a 2-on-1 either on Modric or Kovacic or Brozovic against one of the Canadian defensive midfielders, it could be rough days in transition for Canada. But if they do a good enough job in pressing the ball further up top, I think Canada could come out with a good result. But for me, selfishly, that's the game I most care about. That's the game I want to be able to make sure one team gets through all 3 points, and that would be Canada. So I can't wait for that to happen. And there is a confidence in the team, because they know that they were the better team against Belgium and feel hard done by. So they're going to come out guns blazing and trying to make up for that result. And that's the attitude of the manager. So I wouldn't be surprised if the team puts in a high level performance.
Fair. And lastly, Gio?
My game is actually sort of the lead up game. I have to say, just because it leads up to it, I have to say Japan against Costa Rica, just because that game will inevitably make Spain Germany one of the earliest must-win games for Germany, and you kind of want to see that pressure in the World Cup. You're going to see how great players kind of adjust, or great teams kind of adjust and see what they can do. But who doesn't like some madness, especially in the World Cup, right? So Japan moving on obviously would almost seal our prediction, Ray. Kind of.
It was a team thing, bro. It was a team thing. I don't know what you're talking about.
Like 66% of us at least. But yeah, I definitely want to see Germany kind of really flex their muscles. I really want to see them be Germany again, kind of that powerhouse in terms of the international scene. And yeah, no, that will so my game is Japan and Costa Rica just because it leads up to a very entertaining Spain Germany game within the same day. So do stay tuned to that.
I want to quickly piggyback on that. So if Japan finishes first and Canada finishes second in their group, I know it's early days. You never know what could happen, but that would be the round of 16 matchup: Canada versus Japan. And I'm not going to say that I wouldn't be surprised if Canada ordered that game and suddenly they're in the quarters. Okay, so I know we're taking it very far, but it's early days. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, let's.
I'm very excited over the bracket when I saw that lineup potentially.
Let's see them face Croatia first,
Hey.
and then on our following podcast
we can get more excited. But I'm planting the seed. I'm planting the seed because if I'm wrong, I'll never bring this up again. But I'm planting the seed.
Fair enough.
For sure. And obviously, guys, we'll be covering all the action from... I'm pretty sure all groups play before our next podcast, so obviously you'll be hearing that from us. On that note, we will be concluding our podcast for today. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. Our handle is @houseof_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, feel free to get in touch with us via email as well, houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be Tuesday when we review the notable games taking place this weekend for the 2022 World Cup. With that, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
England, please fuck up the Americans.
Thank you, Gio.
Oh, you better not mess up my parlay, you freaking English players, man.
And thank you guys for listening. Peace out.